What's up, guys? It's Odin. I wanted to do a video talking about the Kespa Cup Group A. So the group we got is going to be Byun, we got Zest, we got Neeb, and we also have Rogue. And I believe this is going to be on Tuesday, Korean time. And I just wanted to talk about the matchup and some of the players. I went back and watched some of the games, and yeah, I just think it would be cool to look at this group more in depth. So first off, I want to talk about Byun. He's obviously the favorite right now. He's the GSL champion. The crossover finals were last night, so that was some really good, information to look at. I didn't really write anything down, but spoilers, he lost the dark in the game. It went to game 5. It was super crazy. A lot of late game, and you could just tell how upset Byun was when we lost. So yeah, anyway, that was a really good series, and I think that's going to show kind of what I'm talking about, is Byun's going to get figured out pretty soon. And even when I went back and looked at some of his games and you try to find a weakness, it's hard because a lot of it is just he micros himself out of these situations so well. And he just seems to never give up and, always know exactly what to do to get him back into the game. Like in that Shoutcraft game versus Innovation, he just looked so dominant versus everyone else, and Innovation finally has him pressured on his natural, and he ends up deflecting the Cyclone Rush with one Siege Tank, losing a bunch of SCVs, and he draws the game out and just goes for this crazy Doom drop, right into the main, shuts the production down, just absolutely crazy. So that tenacity is a huge strength of Byun, and I think micro is so dependent on knowing how your units are going to interact with the units you're microing against, that we really need to find a way to set Byun up to where he's not used to microing against this, or the micro cap is too high. Just people are going to figure out a way to find his weakness and get into him. A lot like Zest, because when Zest won, the spotlight's on him. Everyone's, going to figure out how can we pressure this macro style. You can't let him get up to 4 bases so easily while you're on 2 or 3. And he will just, it seemed less about mechanics, even though they were really good, but he just had so many more units and he would just throw them at you. I think of the Maru games versus Dust Towers, he just pressures him so much. And it's really hard to get out of that. So with Byun, to just talk about a little more, I think the build orders, he's shown so much, he plays so many games, he's in all these online leagues, and going into a tournament that's very sketchy to have, because people can look at those games and analyze them and kind of try to find a weakness. So some of the builds we've seen from Byun so far is the 2-1-1, the 1-1-1 with the Widow Mine a lot versus Protoss. He did the Banshee one, and then we see Proxy Factory as well. And if you don't know, 2-1-1 is 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. So a 1-1-3 would be 1 barracks, 1 factory, 3 starports. Just to get that clear, because I didn't even know that for a while. Yeah, so I think Byun's really just going to need to keep the drive, not let himself get down when he loses these games and he gets down in a series. He really just needs to keep it up and believe in himself, because Byun's really good, and I think he can beat anybody still. So he's definitely my favorite coming out of this game. Look for some new crazy stuff. I really want to see some 3 racks cheese. Maybe more against the Terran, not so much Zerg. Maybe a Protoss, you could make it work. But yeah, just something a little more wild, just to make people throw him off and to give his micro really showcase that. So I definitely expect Byun to go out first. Next, I want to talk about Zest. Let's get the GSL champions back to back. So Zest definitely got figured out. If you just watch how he fell off, he just kind of kept doing the same thing, and people definitely figured it out. So I'm worried that's going to happen to Byun, but we'll see how long it takes for people to adapt. And I think Zest is still a threat. He's always been a good player. He's on KT. He has great practice partners. It's really hard to count him out, even though he's had such a poor showcase for the past months. It really just feels like it's a Zest mentality problem, and maybe now that he's lost so much, he can just play to win, and just he doesn't have this whole, Roddy Mullen talks about when he was a champion and how difficult it was for him to keep winning and still have and enjoy skating, because you build, he uses this analogy, you build a house, but you just spend the whole time guarding it. You don't even get to live inside. I feel like that definitely happens to the champions in esports as well. You know, they win so much and then they start losing and they just collapses way faster than they ever expected. So hopefully Zest can calm down, you know, and get some of his games back. And I think he does have strong PvT, and even though Byun.t's really good in TVP, having Zest and Neeb, you know, it's going to be just a lot of wild styles. So we'll see if he can slip through, maybe take a couple games off. I don't see him beating Byun.t though. I think Zest and Neeb's going to be super fun. You know, Neeb's looking pretty scary. I'll talk about him in a minute, but yeah, you know, I think the game could go a lot of directions. I don't really play Protoss, so I don't know the meta, but yeah, that'll be interesting. That was just a fucking waste of information. So yeah, Zest and Rogue should be pretty cool. You know, we don't see a lot of PvZ, and Rogue's definitely in a position to surprise everybody right now. And so, yeah, to talk about Neeb, you know, he's always just really hyped up. If you watch DreamHack, all of the casters said Neeb was going to win versus Polt, and Polt just actually comes back and wipes the floor. You know, game 1, Neeb gets a lot of SCV harass done. Polt can't hang on and he wins, you know, but if Neeb can't get that worker damage done, and it looks like he depends on this adept pressure a lot, you know. Granted, this is a couple months ago, and we really need to see how this Korean ladder has helped him out. You know, it'll be really interesting to see how he plays differently, you know, if he can handle the pressure a little more. We've read that he's been playing with some top Koreans like Solar and Byun.t a lot. And I think it's interesting with Byun.t, even in his interview, he says he doesn't win a lot of the games, and Thorn has a great interview with Cypher, who is a Quake player. And he talks about training in a sense of you'd play opponents that aren't as good as him so he could learn nuances in the game and then reapply that to the higher tier. So once you can figure that out, I think that's exactly what Byun.t did to Neeb, is he kind of just used him as a really good player, but just to figure out these nuances. You know, where is he looking when I'm going to drop the Widow Mine with this pressure, you know, all of that. So I think Byun.t versus Neeb should be super cool. Hopefully Neeb has some dirty secret that he's going to pull on Byun.t because he knows him so well, and a Neeb upset on Byun.t would be awesome, but I don't see it happening. And yeah, and then to talk about Rogue a little bit, not a lot of matches to watch, so we can't really call his recent strategies, but you know, he's on Jin Air, I wouldn't count him out. He has Maru to practice with. Maru's scary. What are the tosses? He's got Creator, SOS, and Trap on Jin Air. Like, I don't know if Neeb and Zest can keep up with that right now. So I personally think Byun.t's going to come out first. We're going to have Rogue in second, and then it's going to be a pretty close call between Neeb and Zest, but I definitely put Zest over Neeb just from performance, you know. But it'd be great to see if Neeb could break into the foreign scene a little more. And, you know, a little bit to talk about, you know, I think with Byun.t, yeah, he does the same strategy a lot, but it seems to be, it's not what he's doing, it's how he's doing it, you know? Like, you'll see him go for a cool double medevac drop, and then maybe he won't, you know, he'll just drop the one and keep the other at home. So just pay a lot of attention for this Group A. You know, I think it's going to be pretty wild, and yeah, I'll try to get a group out for Group D, or Group B, C, and D for the next time. So thanks for watching, guys.